Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. 2 casualties were reported in an incident after a scaffolding collapsed along the Middle Ring Road 2 or the MRR2 near Desa Tun Razak in Kuala Lumpur. Now, in the incident around 6 p.m, authorities said a trailer carrying heavy machinery is believed to have crashed into the scaffolding of a flyover at the Suke Highway construction site. The Fire and Rescue Department has removed 5 victims from the van believed to be involved in the incident, and according to authorities, 3 of them were rescued while 2 of the victims died at the location. Now, our reporter Raja Hisham Raja Zaid is on the ground to bring the latest news updates. Stay tuned for more. We will be bringing you more updates in our next bulletin and on astroawani.com. The Cabinet has advised the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to not allow Parliament sitting until the end of emergency in August. De facto Law Minister Datuk Seri Takiuddin Hassan said this is because of the risk posed by COVID-19 to nearly half of the 220 members of Parliament.
He pointed out the age factor. Out of 220 MPs, 77 are aged between 61 and 69 years old, 19 between 70 and 79, and 4 aged 80 and above. Takiuddin said half of the MPs fall under the high-risk category. As such, Parliament sitting would expose the MPs in an enclosed area that can trigger the spread of infection. Takiuddin was asked to respond to the King's decree that the Parliament could sit even during the state of emergency.
Before this, the King decreed that Parliament is allowed to convene during emergency. Now, with Takiuddin's statement, when can we expect for Parliament to sit again? We asked Ilham Centre Senior Fellow Professor Dr. Hamidin on the latest announcement and what it tells us of the government's intention.
Even though Yang di-Pertuan Agong or National Palace issued a statement calling for government to convince the Parliament, it is still the prerogative of the Prime Minister to advise Yang di-Pertuan Agong to hold for the sitting of Parliament. So it is clear from the Takiuddin statement that Yang di-Pertuan Agong was not advised by the Prime Minister or by the Cabinet not to convince Parliament. So it is clear that the executive branch of the government clearly want not to hold any Parliament session during the emergency. Suspension or postponement of Parliament is not a technical term for Parliament in our Constitution, also even in the practice of British Parliament. Its prorogue is more the words that has been used, meaning at this particular time there is no Parliaments, holding of Parliaments from the last session until next, meaning there is a prolonged sessions that is held by the government of the day. So it is clear what government is doing now is to prolong the Parliament. It's not to call or dissolvement of the Parliament.
The government has drafted new measures in amendments to the emergency ordinance to combat COVID-19. Among them is to allow the use of tracking devices to control the movements of COVID-19 patients, close contacts and persons under surveillance.
Health Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Adam Baber said they will be required to wear a tracking device in the form of an electronic wristband for 10 days. A penalty will be imposed if the device is destroyed, damaged, lost or altered. Among other new provisions introduced under the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Act include empowering the Health Director General to issue instructions, to enable powers of investigation to provide information in relation to the prevention and control of infectious diseases, to enable corporate bodies to be charged with offences, and to empower the authorities to impose penalties. The new provisions will come into force on March 11th.
Deloitte has agreed to a 324 million ringgit settlement to resolve all claims related to their fiduciary duty on auditing the accounts of 1MDB and SRC International from 2011 to 2014, said the Ministry of Finance.
In a statement, MOF said the amount represents the largest 1MDB-related settlement by an audit firm in Southeast Asia. Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said the settlement marked another success in the Malaysian government's continuing recovery efforts against parties involved in 1MDB, SRC and its related entities.
Saudi Arabia has ruled that only people who have been vaccinated against COVID-19 will be allowed to attend Hajj this year. This is according to Saudi's health minister, who has sent out a circular urging early preparations for providing the manpower needed to run health facilities during the Hajj.
The scale of the Hajj, due to take place in July this year, is not clear yet. Last year's Hajj was performed by a limited number of Saudis and foreign Muslims residing in the country to curb the spread of the virus.
Should the private healthcare sector be allowed to procure and sell COVID-19 vaccines parallel to the government's national vaccination rollout? Tonight on Consider This, Sharat Kutan and Melissa Idris speak to Dr. Kuljit Singh and Dr. Kwa Swee Keng about the pros and cons of allowing a private market for vaccines. We'll take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to AWANI Tonight. With most economic sectors opening up, how soon can Malaysia recover from the impact of the pandemic? Minister in the Prime Minister's Department in charge of economy, Datuk Sri Mustafa Muhammad, tells us what to expect.
We are very optimistic that there will be positive growth given the opening up of the Malaysian economy. So prospects, there will be, compared to December last year, of course, there will be growth in the first quarter. You compare the first quarter of this year, fourth quarter of last year, there will be growth.
Despite the optimism, Tokpa said economic recovery is highly dependent on keeping COVID-19 cases low.
It is a very dynamic situation. First, it depends on the COVID situation. There's been ups and downs. Yeah? At some point in time, it was double digit, and then 3 digits, and in the last 2-3 weeks, it's been 4 digits. 4 digits, there's also been ups and downs, but in the last 1 or 2 days, the number has been around 1,500, 2,000. So a lot depends on the COVID situation, the overall COVID situation. In the event it goes to 3 digits, for example, that will provide better prospects for growth. Yeah? Secondly, it's got to do with SOPs. Yeah? SOPs, this is very important. We've got to observe the SOPs. It's got to do also with inter-district loosening up of movement. Now, from beginning in the 5th of March, the government has decided that we should allow inter-district travel. Interstate is still not possible, so that will be a dampener on growth.
Having said that, he remains upbeat on Malaysia's economy this year, in line with global recovery.
But the overall sentiment overseas is quite positive. Yeah? In America, in Europe, in China, of course, China registered positive growth last year in ASEAN, and this is seen in confidence, greater confidence stock market in many countries. We can see this in commodity prices, which have seen some recovery in recent days, recent weeks. So the mood is positive overall. It's upbeat, but there's no certainty. As I said many times, when the first PKP was put in place on the 18th of March, there are many people in Malaysia who believe that it's going to be 2 weeks, 4 weeks at most. And now, of course, we have been in this for almost 1 year now. So it is dynamic. We are monitoring developments very closely. That's why we put in place 5 packages so far. I mean, when we put the first one in place, probably many people probably expect that there might be 1 or 2, but not 5 certainly. Yeah?
Wildlife trafficking in Malaysia is an ongoing issue. This is due to the high demand for wildlife and its parts for food and medicine. On World Wildlife Day, we speak to Noraini Nasaruddin, Perhilitan's Chief of Assistant Director in the Enforcement Division, about the realities of battling wildlife trafficking.
Recently, a tiger was identified to have been shot at least 5 times using a shotgun, believed to be by poachers.
On the 2nd of March, So we did an X-ray scan. So the result found that 5 sour bullets were fired using shotgun inside the tiger's body. So 1 bullet was removed in the same day through minor surgery, while another bullet required further surgery. So all the treatment and surgical procedures are performed by the veterinary doctor from Buletin. So we believe this awang rasa was suspected being shot by poachers.
In recent years, Berita identified many cases of illegal possession of wildlife due to smuggling and illegal trade. 7 cases were identified in 2018, 17 in 2019, and 10 in 2020, while 2 cases of illegal wildlife trade were identified in 2018 and 2019 respectively, and 8 in 2020.
That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro AWANI app. I'm Cynthia Ng. We'll see you tomorrow night.